All right, nerd out with me for a sec. This is what I'm working with here. Making a couple of changes, so this is going to update soon, but I figured I'd walk you through this, give you a little tone reveal. So I have a main board and a sideboard. This is my sideboard where I kind of keep the experimental stuff, or, you know, the extras. And this is my main board with my core tone, with a drive section and a loop section. So underneath, I have, this is a pedal pad, pedalboard. I think it's 30 inches by 18 inches, I think. Anyway, underneath is where I have the wireless mounted, although I haven't played live in a while. I have a True Tone CS12 and a True Tone CS6 mounted underneath for power. So that gives power to everything on this board. And then over here, I just have a cheapo Kaleen power supply. A couple of those ports give dirty power, so I'm currently working through a different option. Anyway, my signal comes in, my guitar comes into this first line switcher here. Green channel means amp and pedal boards. Red channel, now this goes into my DAW, which is a Scarlett 18i20 interface running Pro Tools. So back to green channel, that now just gives access to the pedal board and amp. So I don't have to switch back and forth when I have ideas and want to go into to Pro Tools. So from the line selector, I go into my tuner, Boss TU3 Waza Craft. I had the other TU2 for years and decades and got sick of looking at those colors, so I bought the Waza because it has blue LEDs. Out of my tuner into this Digitech Trio. This is just kind of a drum and bass accompany thing. Good for just looping simple 12-bar blues and stuff like that. Out of the Trio into my noise suppressor. This is an NS2. I currently have a different one on order. I'm waiting, it's back ordered with Sweetwater, just waiting for that to come in. So that'll change pretty quickly. I also have a different compressor coming too. So out of the output from the noise suppressor, that goes to the amp. That's a triple rec, circa 2000, 2001, something like that. One of the earlier 3 channels. And that is a vintage, like 1970s Big M cab that I refinished myself. Out of the noise suppressor, send. Basically everything else in the entire chain runs through the loop of the noise suppressor, except my actual loop section that runs through the back of the amp. So from the send from the noise suppressor, we go directly into the wah. This is an Exotic XW1, super musical, tons of options on the side. It has a bunch of dip switches inside you can change to. From the wah into the compressor, like I said, this is changing pretty soon, but for right now, and I've run this for about a decade, it's a Keeley 4-knob plus. Pretty neat little compressor, but it definitely adds just a little bit of noise, so I'm upgrading. Out of my compressor into the nether. This is the first section that starts to pitch shift. So this is kind of an octaver, but I wouldn't really call it an octaver. I would say that it adds artifacts, like subharmonic artifacts to your playing. So really good to just tighten up, not tighten up, to fill out like a clean tone is where I use it most, just on really low settings. Out of the nether into the Morpheus drop tune. These were really cool pedals. When they first came out, they were borderline unusable. They didn't track very well. And then right before the company went out of business, they released a firmware update that fixed everything. So these things are awesome. It tracks really well for octaves. Super fat sound. Out of my octaver, or out of the Morpheus into the Electro-Harmonix Cockfight. Super cool pedal. Just like a half-cocked wah, and it gives you like talk box tone or a cry tone. Kind of neat. Out of the Cockfight into the first of the drives. This is my JHS Morning Glory, and I have the switch for that as well. That just switches high gain, low gain. Good for the Pantera stuff. This was my always on clean boost for like many, many years. I've since kind of added, when I added the Archer, that became really my always on clean boost. And then sometimes I just add that to tighten it up. The Archer is kind of loose and has a lot of saturation. The JHS is super tight. Just tightens everything up a little bit. Anyway, and then I come out of the Archer into the equalizer. That's a Boss GE7 7-band equalizer. That just like gives me a tiny, basically what I'm using this for now is just to give me a little bit more air on the top end and to boost just a tiny bit on the bottom end, but not really a lot. So from the EQ, now that goes all the way over to my second line selector. This is set up on a loop, so if it's red, I'm looping back on itself, so it shuts off this entire side of the board and only keeps this board in. And I'll go through the loop section in a second, so let me just finish the drive section. If it's green, now that opens up the second half of the board. So from the line selector, I go first to the POG, and I'm not running anything in a loop here. I'm running everything in line, which has caused me an issue with the Jam Man, but I'll figure that out later. So the POG going into the then the next kind of drive, call it kind of the drive board. So the Hot Cake and the Owly for clean tone. Oh, these guys are awesome. Hot Cake and Owly mixed with the Archer is just a sick clean tone. And I have all these drives turned way down. Out of the Owly into, actually the Owly, I don't even know what it does. It seems to be broken. It just adds the perfect amount of like whatever it is that it does. It only has one setting, basically. The knobs all kind of do one thing, and it's awesome. So it's just a, it's an always on for me. The Big Muff, that's pretty fuzzy. It can be usable if it's turned way down. Out of the Big Muff into the Full Tone GT500. I was running this at 18 volts, and that power supply, the 18 volt output is very dirty. So I'm not currently running that at the moment, but the overdrive section of this pedal is very, very good. The distortion side leaves something to be desired, at least for me. I'm going out of the Full Tone into the Super Shifter. This is kind of a harmony pedal. I use it for whammy, whammy ups, whammy down, usually whammy ups. Out of the Super Shifter into the Phaser, into the Tremolo, into the Jam Man, into the Wiretap. I think what I have to do is wire the Jam Man outside of the gate loop, and that will fix the tracking. We'll see. The Wiretap is just a riff recorder, and that goes back into the second line selector to finish that loop. So the loop section, I come out of the loop send from my amp and go into the attenuator. Currently, the attenuator also has a power issue. I'm not sure what happened. This is the Saturn Works. I just got it 6 months ago, so. But out of the attenuator, I use that to match my loop level with my drive section. Usually it's a little bit quieter, so that can, or sorry, usually it's a little bit louder. I can tame it down a little bit with that loop. I could also use it to master volume if I wanted to. Out of the attenuator into the TC Electronic Chorus Flanger. This is a super cool pedal. I'm just amazingly impressed with it. It sounds awesome. Out of the Chorus into the DD5. Out of the DD5 into the DD20. So I like to stack my delays. Gives me kind of a medium and a long delay, and it just really short feedbacks. Seems pretty cool. Out of the delay into the reverb. That's a Hall of Fame, the original. I just use a simple plate or a simple room. Out of the reverb into the Ditto. This is just a looper where I could store my ideas. And then back out into the amp. So that's my whole rig at the moment. Like I said, I'm adding a new compressor. I'm adding the Empress Compressor Mark II, and I'm adding a new noise suppressor, the newest Boss multi-dimensional noise suppressor thingy-do that they have, the NS1X. So I'll rip it all apart and rewire it again. So that's it. Any comments, whatever, let me know. Let me know what you think. Nerd out with me. Pedals are great. Peace.